you with us on this Tuesday morning. Gosh, it's September already. Where'd all the fish go besides my boat? Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, the iSave team bring you this Ed Schultz news and commentary. I wake up this morning and I don't know how much attention this is going to get, but it does play in to these right-wing conservatives in the House who are trying to defund Planned Parenthood. The Pope Francis, is now saying that he is going to allow Catholic priests to forgive women and welcome women who have had abortions. Now, this is a massive change within the Catholic Church, and how this is going to reverberate through the Congress, I'm not quite sure. But there's a group of psychos who are saying that we can't fund Planned Parenthood because obviously they're morally against it. They think it's wrong, that federal funds shouldn't be going to that. But this is all being connected to the possibility of another government shutdown. And when they come back from recess, working hard in their district, they're going to have 12 days, basically, 12 working days before the October 1st deadline of funding the government. The question is, how far are they going to go with this, or is this just a bargaining chip? I mean, they put together quite an effort. A group of 18 conservatives have told Speaker John Boehner, told him in late July that they wouldn't support any legislation that continues to fund Planned Parenthood. And if this gains steam, who knows how many more will jump on board. But the polling shows right now across this country that most Americans would blame the Republicans for a government shutdown, as they did back in 2013. For more on all of this, let's go to Tim Ryan, Congressman from Ohio, great friend. He is a member of the House Budget Committee. What are you doing?
And I'm a proud Catholic.
Well, I guess I did lead with the right comment. What do you? I mean, seriously, doesn't this play into their conversation? I mean, this causes them a little rift, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you think about Cruz over the last few years trying to shut the government down to prove his point, raise his profile, move himself into a leadership position within the Tea Party, and now he's got an opportunity, and House Republicans have an opportunity to make this an issue. I think they're playing with fire. I mean, I don't want to say I'm glad they're doing it, but I will tell you, you look at the political situation in a place like Ohio, where you have moderate Republican women, independent men and women who are pro-choice. I mean, who don't support abortions, but don't really want Uncle Sam sitting in the doctor's office with them when they're having a situation, when they're pregnant, or preventative care and all the rest. Those voters are so turned off by this kind of radicalism that I think, it may boost Ted Cruz in Iowa. You know, this stuff may help, Scott Walker, who was on the shows this week talking about how he already has defunded Planned Parenthood in Wisconsin. That may play well in a very conservative Iowa primary or New Hampshire primary, but it is a death knell for these guys as they get into the general election.
How do you think Boehner, who is also a Catholic, going to play this? What does this mean?
Well, he's a very conservative Catholic, you know. we finally, or I feel like I finally got a pope that speaks more to my beliefs, than John Boehner's. But I think, again, Ed, we've had this conversation many times. I mean, he is really getting led around by the nose by the Tea Party. And I think, the Tea Party in the House is going to push this very hard. And there will be a number of moderate Republicans who can't go against it. They don't want the pro-life community coming out against them in a Republican primary because that's a big block of votes for them. And so they'll go along to get along and be very quiet and tepidly support it.
Yeah.
There'll be maybe a handful of Republicans who go back and forth on the pro-choice, pro-life issue that may vote against it and may be reasonable.
So we could be...
At the end of the day, it passes.
At the end of the day, it passes. Okay.
Passes the House, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. So, but it's going to go to the wire on a government shutdown. I mean, there's not going to be any deal done 3 days beforehand. This is going to go to the wire, isn't it? They're going to push this emotional card all the way to the finish, don't you think?
I think so. I don't know how they've got themselves backed into a corner here. I mean, you probably saw that poll a few weeks ago. Like, one of the most popular groups and organizations in the country, Democrats, Republicans, this group, that group, is Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just
It doesn't have to make sense. Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Congressman Tim Ryan with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Let's go to Iran. This is your colleague across the aisle from yesteryear who's now in the Senate, Tom Cotton, this morning talking about the Iranian nuclear deal.
It's very disappointing that the president is going to move forward on such a consequential international agreement, not with a broad, bipartisan, cross-regional majority of the American people, not with a broad, bipartisan majority of the U.S. Senate, which is what a treaty would require, but rather with a bare minority, perhaps of 1/3 plus 1 votes of the House or the Senate. This will be truly unprecedented in the history of American foreign policy.
Is that an accurate picture, Congressman?
Well, it looks that way. I don't. The problem is the Congress does not reflect, I think, the views of the American people, not just on this issue, probably, but on a lot of others. Yeah. So, and I'm wondering. Tom Cotton was in the Senate for a couple months, and he's sending letters, undermining the President of the United States.
Well, that brings me to the other subject, the Logan Act. I mean, isn't there a law on the books that deals with foreign policy decisions that you can't go out of the realm of the leadership of the presidency to start negotiating with other countries? I got to school up on that, but I've heard that the Logan Act, and this is where the fine line these guys are walking right now, to the point where McCain later on said that he was disappointed that he signed that letter because he realized what he had done. But Cotton continues to pound the table and pound the ground about how this is such a horrible deal. It's been a hell of a sales job on the American people. We're the only country of the P1+5 that is saying no to this. And so where does this leave the president? He's got to play every political chip he has to try to get this through, and he might not get it done. So where does that leave us? I mean, what do you think? What are people in Ohio saying about this?
Well, again, on a lot of these foreign policy issues, I mean, people don't really get down into the details of it, but I think most people are confused at this point, and they want to figure out how we don't go to war. Yeah. I mean, we are war weary. I mean, we lost a lot of soldiers in the last 10 or 15 years. Ohio's always been a state that committed when the nation was committed in war, and we lost a lot of people generation after generation. I think Ohioans are very concerned that this kind of glib response to such very serious problems. Yeah, Tom Cotton and these other fellas, who are probably nice guys, they were against it before they even saw it. Yeah. They were against this deal before they read one word, one paragraph. They were already against it. So I feel like those people have lost a ton of credibility in the scare tactics that are going on out there about this is gonna lead to, the agreement's going to lead to a nuclear arms race. Yeah. I think we've got to compare that with what was happening before we were all sitting down and negotiating. And that was, Iran was producing a number of centrifuges. They were enriching uranium at a very high level, potentially getting to nuclear capabilities. That's what was happening before we sat down with them.
So would you support the deal?
Well, I'm doing my last due diligence, Ed, in the next couple days, and I'll be making the decision here really, really soon.
Okay, and it is a tough one. There's no doubt. All right, I want to know, since you've been home, working the beaten path with your constituents, two names, Trump and Sanders. And I'm not looking for a shot at Hillary, but this is Bernie Sanders saying he rejects the comparison between the two.
No, I don't accept that for one moment. We are not engaged here in demagoguery. We're not engaged in racist attacks, outrageous attacks against Mexicans. What we are trying to do is talk about the reality facing the American people and come up with real concrete solutions.
So how does Bernie Sanders play in Ohio, Congressman?
Well, I think he's raising a lot of the issues, that Ohioans care about. There's absolutely no question. I sponsored a pension reform bill with Bernie Sanders. I'm 100% with Hillary Clinton. I supported and was at a press conference with Bernie Sanders maybe a month or 6 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. on a pension issue for people who were devastated by the pension reform bill that passed several years ago. I agree with Bernie on almost everything that he supports. And he has been able, I think, to capture that economic anxiety that people are feeling.
How does Trump play? You go home and are people talking about Trump? Are they fascinated by him? Is this a sideshow? What is it?
Well, they're talking about him now like they were talking about him before when he had the TV show saying you're fired. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. But I think a lot of people think that he's not wearing well. It's fun in the summer. Here we are having this conversation about Donald Trump. He said this, he said that. But the reality of it is, you start throwing people out of your press conferences and you kind of talking demeaning. I mean, people in Ohio, Democrat, Republican, I think, are fairly Midwestern and respectful.
Yeah.
And he just, that kind of stuff just doesn't play. It plays to a certain element, of course. But at the end of the day, it is a little bit more entertainment. But I don't think as we move into the fall, I think he may do well in the Republican primary, but he's going to turn off more and more voters who just want that kind. What's he going to? I mean, everyone wants people want the tone to change in Washington. Ed, do you think he's going to change the tone? Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to put on football helmets if he becomes president of the United States.
Speaking of which, Ohio State, Virginia Tech.
I tell you what, we got a few guys out. It's going to be a tough game on the road on a Monday night in Virginia. It's going to be a toughie, Ed.
What a lame opener. If you guys can't run over them, you're not going to win the national championship again. Come on.
Well, we are still the undisputed national champion. So we're going to ride that out until Labor Day.
What a homer. Here you're playing the injury card already. You haven't even gotten out of practice yet to play the first game. You got all these injuries. Come on now.
Keep expectations very low, Ed.
Jim Ryan, Congressman of Ohio, great to have you with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. All the best.
Buddy.
You bet. Thanks so much. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team bring you Ed Schultz News and Commentary. The president, I think he's dazed and confused on this. On one hand, he talks about climate change up in Alaska. On the other hand, he's handing out a drilling permit to Shell off the northwest coast of Alaska, which is just as dangerous as what we saw down in the Gulf with BP. We'll sort it out when we come back. Stay with us. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com. www.biogreenclean and order today. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Subscribe to the Ed Schultz podcast today. Simply log on to iTunes, search for Ed Schultz, and click the subscribe button to have the show delivered to your preferred listening device daily, free of charge. Rate and review the podcast to tell us how we're doing. More details at wegoted.com.
Communication Workers of America, building a very strong alliance, protecting our democracy. And, of course, working with allies to build a mass movement to restore workers' bargaining rights. Find out more about what they're doing at cwa-union.org. Now, a very strong cynic, which I am sometimes, might lead you to believe that this is all orchestrated, that this permit being handed out to Royal Dutch Shell is not going to get the headlines that the president will get if he goes to Alaska and talks about climate change and talks about how Native Americans up there are being affected by what's happening. Maybe one headline will squash out the other. But I'll tell you what, it's a hell of a coincidence. Let's look at it that way. To me, it makes no sense. And couple that with the president still hasn't made a decision on Keystone. Now, the president's done a lot of executive orders. You mean to tell me that he can't make a decision, that he is waiting for another environmental impact study or an eminent domain decision in a local court in Nebraska to decide whether we should allow TransCanada to put oil over our aquifer in the middle of the country? I find that hard to believe. I think there's been a lot of political tap dancing going on, and the White House has played this Keystone card against environmental groups saying, hey, look, you guys got to be with us on trade because we're there for you, on Keystone. Well, no, you're not. The president hasn't made a decision on that. And if the president's going to hand out drilling permits to Shell in some pristine areas, in risky areas, especially when we have a glut of oil on the world market, I mean, none of it makes any sense. And so here is the president in Alaska talking about climate change.
The time to heed the critics and the cynics and the deniers is past. The time to plead ignorance is surely past. Those who want to ignore the science, they are increasingly alone. They're on their own shrinking island.
So, pretty strong message to basically Republicans in the House and the Senate who are climate deniers. But then the president walks across the aisle and stands with them when it comes to offshore drilling. Listen to this.
Our economy still has to rely on oil and gas. And as long as that's the case, I believe we should rely more on domestic production than on foreign imports. And we should demand the highest safety standards in the industry, our own. Still, I know that there are Americans who are concerned about oil companies drilling in environmentally sensitive waters. Some are also concerned with my administration's decision to approve Shell's application to drill a well off the Alaskan coast, using leases they purchased before I took office.
So what?
I share people's concerns about offshore drilling. I remember the BP spill in the Gulf of Mexico all too well.
Apparently you
don't.
And
that's precisely why my administration has worked to make sure that our oil exploration conducted under these leases is done at the highest safety standards possible, with requirements specifically tailored to the risks of drilling off Alaska.
So, come on, I've had, so somebody in the administration has figured out oil drilling and they have implemented the highest safety standards. So now we don't have anything to worry about now that Shell is going into northwest coast of Alaska to drill where they really shouldn't be in the first place because we don't need it. This is all about multinational profits and the president of the United States satisfying an oil company, which I think is wrong. Michael Brune is with us. He's the executive director of the Sierra Club, and Sierra Club is one of the oldest, largest, and most influential grassroots environmental organizations in this country. Michael, good to have you with us.
Hey, Ed. Good to hear your voice.
Make rhyme or reason of what is going on here.
I cannot. Look, there's a lot about what the president is saying up in Alaska about climate change that I love to hear, that I agree with. The president has taken a bunch of good steps on climate change, but you just can't. You can't make rhyme or reason to the fact that he is saying that climate change needs to be fought, that we have to act, that it's past time to show leadership, and then to allow for drilling in the Arctic. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. It's not right. It's not smart. And I'm certainly not going to defend it.
So the president, because Shell Oil applied for these before he was president, he feels, it sounds like he's obligated to go ahead and give him the stamp of approval. This is hypocritical. This is a turn out of right field. This is hard to comprehend. And do you buy the fact that we can drill safely in a part of the world where there's 40-foot seas?
No. Well, listen to this. The oil industry itself says these are the most dangerous seas to drill in on the planet. The government itself, the Department of the Interior, has studied drilling in the Arctic, and they say that there's a 75% chance of a major spill if drilling were to occur. So if you don't agree with the Sierra Club or environmentalists, just look at what the administration is saying, look at what the oil industry is saying. You cannot drill in the Arctic safely. And if there's an accident, the nearest Coast Guard facility is 750 miles away. So this would be a disaster in the making. And there's no way that we are going to let it happen, because what Shell is doing in the Arctic right now is they're drilling 2 exploratory wells. If they find oil, and if they want to sink more billions of dollars into actually trying to commercially drill for oil, then they would need to get a whole series of new permits from the federal government, and that would come before the next president, the person who comes after Obama. So far, we've had Martin O'Malley say that drilling in the Arctic wouldn't happen under his administration. Bernie Sanders has said the same thing, and now Hillary Clinton has said the same thing. So unless Donald Trump or Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz makes it to the White House, there is no way that Shell will be able to drill for oil. The tragedy of all of this is that Obama should have rejected it immediately. We shouldn't even be having this conversation.
There's no question about that. And I don't know why he would go down this road. It totally goes against everything that he has been saying about climate change.
Yeah.
And do we need this? Do we need this oil on the market? Isn't there a glut of oil out there right now? I mean, the Saudis are doing everything they can to make sure that they control the market. I mean, getting oil is not an issue right now.
Getting oil is not an issue right now. To be fair, this oil wouldn't come to market for at least 8, maybe 10 years from now if they got all of their permits and if they were able to drill successfully, which certainly hasn't been proved so far. But the point here is that we have to continue to reduce our dependence on oil. We need less oil now than we did 10 years ago because we've cut consumption so much. And 10 years from now, we'll be using less oil still. So rather than sinking billions of dollars in expending our dependence on dirty fuels like oil, we need to be investing those billions of dollars into advanced batteries and electric vehicles that put Americans to work and also cut our air and water pollution and climate pollution.
I mean, when the president talks about domestic oil production, it's almost as if he's buying Sarah Palin's bullet points.
Look, the issue is not that difficult. If you want to solve the problem of climate change, you should not be investing in more dirty fuel sources. We have to invest in clean energy. We have to say no to expanding drilling for oil and gas and coal if we want to solve this problem. What it does take is, we just have to stand up to companies like Shell in order to do it.
Can the environmental groups such as yourself, Sierra Club, stop this?
Yes, we can. I don't know if we're going to be able to stop Shell from drilling because they're already up there, but we can and we will. I'll bet you lunch, Fred, that Ed, that we are not going to let Shell drill up there. We can do it, and we're going to do it by the next time they apply for a permit. We're going to fight as hard as we can to stop Shell from getting it. Okay.
Michael Brune, Executive Director, Sierra Club. Great to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Ed. Talk to you soon.
You bet. It's not Barack Obama that was on the campaign trail in 2008. It's not Barack Obama who was on the campaign trail in 2012 for re-election. Who is this guy? Now this.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
The Ed Schultz Internet broadcast is brought to you by the Ring of Fire radio show. Listen to the Ring of Fire weekends on radio stations across the country. Get more information and the news of the day at ringoffireradio.com.
So the tail wagging the dog. Let me tell you about these debates that the Democrats are going to have in limited form. Notice how Hillary Clinton isn't advocating for more debates. Normally, whoever is the nominee runs the DNC. Vice versa over on the other side. This is all about Hillary Clinton not wanting to go face-to-face with Bernie Sanders or Martin O'Malley or anybody else. Limit the number, get this thing over with, get the nomination, and let's turn to the White House. And I think it's wrong. And I think that there are more Democrats than not in this country that are siding with those who are surging than those who are slipping in the polls. And I think the best thing Clinton can do is come out and say, you know what, we should have at least 8 debates. The issues, and we should focus them on maybe 2 subjects here, 2 subjects here, or whatever. But there has to be more than what they have scheduled right now. And I don't think Debbie Wasserman Schultz is doing herself any favors by lining up with a small number of debates on the schedule. We deserve more. I mean, they do want us to contribute, don't they? This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. We're back tomorrow.